Hey guys, listen, I got to film. Here's Marin.
Hey.
Right? Marin's sitting here laughing her head off
Oh.
because we were here last year, guys. And you see these windmills? Can you see all these windmills over here? We've been out here a couple of times and it's been pretty windy, right? And they haven't even been working. And we made a video last year about the windmills not being working. Just sitting here stiff on a windy day. And so often these windmills are not working. We came here a week ago and it's pretty windy and cold, wasn't it? And so we decided not to stay here, but the windmills were not working a week ago. Today it's not so windy and they're working. Anyway, so Marin's sitting here saying, you know, we should make a video about the windmills. And I said to Marin, I said, listen, Marin, I said to Marin, I said, look, we got to change our platform a little bit. We got to get away from all this stress and fear, because I realise I'm actually bringing a lot of stress and fear on people. They can't fucking deal with it, man. Okay, too much truth is too hard for them. They just cannot settle and deal with the reality of what's going on in the world today. And so I said to Marin, I said, look, Marin, they're all running away. For the last 2 months, you'd be amazed how many people and our followers has run away. But they headed for the hills. They just couldn't deal with it. And I've had that influence on people since I first came here 5 years ago. Remember, guys, I'm a shadow band. I had 24 million followers. And if you go to the Wisdom page, only 2.5 years ago, you'll see that our platforms was getting 200,000 views a hit. No problems. And we had an easy 2.5 million followers then. Gone. And I do mean they are gone, guys. And, you know, for the last 5 years, I've watched truthers worldwide and freedom fighters buckle. They can't handle the truth. They can only handle so much. And, you know, one of the most astonishing parts is people's not getting through their thick skull. When you consider the 10 videos made of completion and every single biblical prophecy unfolding, 227 is the end date. It's the time of the inflection point. When we talk about inflection points, when you talk about the last 100 years, we've gone from 1.6 billion to 8.2 billion. Remember something, guys, in 1970 we were 3.3 billion and we're 8.2 today. So in the last 50 years alone that I've been on this planet, 55 years, I've been here 65 years, but I've watched the planet gone to nearly triple the population. Australia went over triple. Some countries went over triple, some didn't go over triple. Like Denmark had 5 billion people in 1970, it's got 5.6 million now. And the 600 million, it's actually mostly outlanders from immigration over the last 50 years. Most Danish people, Norwegian and Swedish people, they move, they leave. They actually do leave. They go to warmer countries. It's recorded that Danish people, okay, there's just as many Danish people living outside Denmark as there is inside Denmark. Africa, Turkey, Spain, and in Asia. They're moving to all the warm places. But, you know, that's how it was when we moved to Australia. Why did everyone move to Australia? Well, it's been the same thing for 50 years. The weather. The weather changes every single thing in your life. Up here, it's like dead weight. It's like zombie apocalypse up here. And there's no other way to explain it to you, right? Compared to Australia, you cannot compare. People up here are so polarised compared to Australians that it's unfucking believable. They're just living in such a delusional state, and they have the worst Minnesota and DDPX here in Denmark and in America. And they're so polarised. Same in LA. When I went to LA, they're so polarised in LA into themselves. They're just not spiritual people anymore. They've lost their spirituality. And, you know, the reality is fear is driving the placebo effect through the atmosphere and affecting fauna and nature. Animals go around circles around the earth, birds falling out the sky, and fauna collapsing. And bacteria, which is immune systems, collapse between 50 and 100% amongst every human being on earth. And as I've told you before, 77% of children are now born with chronic diseases, 77%. I mean, you know, when we live as a species in denial for so many years, these are the adverse effects that are hitting us today. And as I try to tell you, it's already happened, guys. Every single thing you hear on every platform with fear-mongering has already happened. The Antichrist and what's been happening in the world has already been identified worldwide. You're just starting to see the disclosure worldwide. People blowing the whistle everywhere in Parliament House about consumptions and about toxic poisons in our food, and how 67% of our food's all toxic poison and been killing us, right? We've not only been creating babies with sex, drugs and rock and roll going out of control, and same with consumption with AI, artificial intelligence, artificial mutation, but we die younger. And we die younger non-stop. And people don't even believe in it because they're completely gone beyond the point of return. But, you know, it's more sex and drug and rolls every day as well. We've got a growth rate of 200,000 people a day. That's the size of Darwin, capital city growth rate by every day. Now, tell me, guys, you have to stop and think about something, right? DNA evidence and solid evidence. As I told you before, 95% of people, 93 to 95% is beyond the point of return. They can no longer think instinctively. We cannot change the way they think, the way they judge mentally, okay, and psychologically. They're controlled by stress and fear, and we know that with DNA studies done, they're completely controlled by it, and we cannot change them. And therefore, we're going in a six mass extinction strip from the sixth for the sixth time. And we can't prevent what's going to happen because people will not cross back over into their sixth sense because they maintain in their five senses inside their mind without realising it. Self-centered ego, judgmental behaviour, competitive behaviour, angry behaviour, narcissism, and people just living in their own truth with the wrong tools and the wrong barcodes. Depends on drugs, vibrations and frequencies or sounds. They depend on something because they can't depend on themselves. And yet it's within yourself that your DNA restructures. Nothing to do with any light, power, energy, vibrations or frequencies or any other tools or any drugs. Look, I've been wild my whole life, guys. And I do mean more. The body's resilient. The body's far, far more resilient than you understand. But when you're controlled by stress and fear, it's not resilient. Okay, when you've got too many worries in your life by little things that build big mountains, you don't realise how much you're controlled by the human conditioning. Do you know how many people's controlled by sentimental value alone? Sentimental value. Think about all the things you own that means everything to you that's sentimental value. Do you know how many things in your life is sentimental value and it's all mental? You're attached to so many things that controls your fear mechanisms with sentimental value because it's mental. Materialistic things. Worried about this, worried about that, worried about paying the bills, worried about this and that and that and that and that and that and that and that. Your whole life's conditioned into worrying. The biggest killer in the world today is stress. Okay, all stress-related diseases, and we die prematurely, but the biggest killer is putting food on the table, a shirt on the back and a roof over your head. Think about that for a moment, because you need to. As it's been escalating non-stop with 1,000, 100,000, please more, we keep making unnatural selection because stress makes you do that. It makes you think of all the wrong things and just get so deep into things and into conspiracies and this and that and then over-exaggerate. Oh, they're killing us. Oh, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Mate, it's already been fucking done. And that's where you've got to get back and wrap your mind around. Everything you're talking about has already been done. Now it's a crossover between 220 and 227. Don't get it wrong. You need to reject every single thing you're watching on social media and whatever it sends you. All the truthers and all their freedom fighters out there are so fucking mixed up with what's going on that they're just hitting their fear mechanisms now. They're only just starting to wrap their mind around what has been going on because they can't deal with the fact. They think what's coming, everything they think is coming has already happened to them. And they don't believe in it. They're in denial. And that's the biggest problem. They can't think instinctively. They can't think with their sixth sense. They can't think with their aura. They can't think in spirituality. Only mentality. And they can say what they like and do what they want. But look, mate, you've got to stop being controlled by all these mechanisms. Because you don't know how much they control you in a fear. And it controls every human being on earth so much with the placebo effect that's spreading like a virus and affecting all of us. And to reflect that, that's a whole different ball game. And that's a ball game people are not playing, but they need to play it. Your aura is a shining armor, so powerful you have no fucking idea. And especially when you're living a mentality, then you have no idea what you're doing. There's a reason why we can mastermind use 100% brain and the rest of the world can only use up to 15% of the whole world. And you've got to stop and ask yourself, instead of avoiding this, if you can only 7 to 15% of your brain, what's happening to the other 85%? Because if you can't use it, you can't use it. Mental telepathy, ESP, remote you and telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. This is your natural organic motor skills. So why aren't they working? Because you're not fucking normal, that's why. Because normality is using your biofields, and you have 32 sensors. You can use 100% of your brain and your 24th chromosome that's in dormancy, which gives you supernatural power, superhuman abilities. And you were given that God-given gift when you're born with it. It's in your biology and your DNA with genetic memory. You can do every single thing Christ can to be possible, and that means heal every single thing in your system with longevity and 2 molecular mortality and 130 nucleosome molecules with genetic repair kit, with genetic memory. But you need the memory to do it, and that's the thing outside the mind, not with the mind. And people are oblivious to this, but you see it in the movie Limitless. We developed that drug in Australia that brought people back in the primal state to think instinctively and think outside the mind, use 100% of their brain. That's why they made the documentary Matrix in 1999. You know, I'm telling you now, look at the Star Chamber and you'll realise we're the ones with godlike power. And that's how they made the movie from the militaries, because we had the godlike power in the biggest operations in the world. We brought the truth out to the whole human civilization, but you know what? They're a species in denial. We told them in 97, we went worldwide in 99, and the whole world was told in 99, your parents are crazy. And now they're more crazy than ever, because now the outcome is going to hit everybody in the world because they're crazy. And they were told worldwide they were crazy in 99, and they avoided it. And that's why they declared species in 2003, and they do not know what they're doing. They can only 7 to 15% of the brain, so they don't know what they're doing, no matter what comes out of their mouth. You have got to start dividing with family, lovers and friends and use a two-edged sword, because they're not who you think they are, they'll destroy you. Every single thing in this world will completely destroy every human being on earth unless you think outside the mind with your sixth sense, because it's the only way you're going to get out of here. To get out of what's going to happen. You can think what you like. You're welcome to think whatever you want. You have free will, but let me tell you something. The voices in your mind ultimately sign things in, and they're only a personality, and they'll tell you whatever you want to believe in. And you're completely oblivious to this. But it's what restricts you. It's what limits you so much that you cannot use 100% of your brain, because you listen to the voice of mind that tells you otherwise, and you discredit yourself and destroy people around you with your own belief system. That's anti-clockwise. And when you're anti-clockwise, you're not clockwise, and that's all there is to it. 1.3% of the population is clockwise. 300 to 400,000 people worldwide, 3 to 400 million, is going through the Great Awakening. The truth is, the freedom fighters worldwide is only 400 million. And 1.3%, 125 million, is clockwise in their aura. Okay? The elite, the witness, the 144,000, they were chosen a long time ago. They left their mark on earth, wrote the books that unfold with evidence, and prophets all over the planet that's been warning you about Revelation and the end times. And I can tell you now, when you look at Jonathan Cahn, he wrote all the books unfolding right now. Okay, Tom Thorne passed away with Sea Guys 225. So did Kim Clement when he predicted 227. He passed away as well. When they have divine intervention, the divine power, they have to carry that power. And that power is so powerful, it buckles the greatest prophets on earth, right, that sees the visions in deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. And those people live in those moments. They go across timelines. In deja vu, they go into the future and live those moments. And you know how dramatic that is on your aura, on your system, that you go through a portal, through deja vu into the future, and you see what happens. And you're standing in that location and watching people worldwide, well, going into a catalysm event. And you're seeing the future, and you know the future. And they saw it in the looking glass. They're going underground military bunkers. They know. They saw it as well. And when you're one of those people, you have so much power to carry with divine interventions that you have no idea what we go through, but it collapses people. They always die from bad headaches or heart attacks from powerful stress. We are affected by stress. You know, the Bible says everyone will be in a delusional state and only the elect will not be deceived, but they will be right on the brinks. Now, I find it very difficult to hang on, and you know what? They are. Most of them die. Okay, they're righteous, but they die because it's that powerful. They take 100,000 times more weight on their shoulders because the world is on their shoulders. God gives them the power to put the whole world on their shoulders. Their duty is to try and save the whole world. So therefore, they're always put in a position where they've got the whole world's weight on their shoulders. And do you know how much weight that is to take? Well, you know that every one of your followers is suffering mental disorders, gene defects, stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, paranoia, taking drugs and cannot cope, and you know the truth. And you've dealt with it your whole life in 10 years in prison, where 98% of people take drugs, okay, because they can't cope. And the biggest mental health abuse DNA studies done, and that was 2000 to 2010. Today it's a lot worse. 98% of people has to depend on some kind of drugs, illicit or not, vibrations, power, frequencies, or something to get by, because they cannot get by on their own 2 feet in their own summary, in their own natural organic molecules, because their body cells is in corruption collusion during the daytime and can only be at night time. In 98.7% of the whole human population, which is controlled by stress, fear and anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion and paranoia, and limited knowledge at the same time. And just imagine, what would you do if you knew 7.5 to 7.8 billion people is beyond the point of return? How would you cope? What would you do? Well, the World Transformation Movement is natural selection. And then the WF, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, is body and mind. The consciousness singularity, body and mind. The WEF, World Transformation Movement, that they're pushing is to take out the natural selection of life and replace it with intelligent design. And as Billy Carson and many say, they're going to transfer their mind into avatars, robots, all sorts of things, Neuralink. Elon Musk with a Neuralink. And the whole thing is body and mind, and transferring your body into avatars with longevity. Even Harari tells you that, longevity. They found the divine power to command nature. Or should I say, his words is the divine power of creation and destruction. We're going to create our own gods. You know, and that's why the government sit right into this to create their own gods. Because atheism has always thought there were great gods and gods of mankind. Self-centered creatures. And the problem is this: their children and the legions of many, because reasoning, they all come to their conclusion with reason and believe in their own truth. And that's what 7.8% of the population believe in. Consciousness is a mental event, a mental process, an illusion imagination set by the Rockefellers into the conscious singularity. It's a soul trap. And these species are soulless. All over the world, they're just personalities using IQ, artificial intelligence, and leverage mutation mutating in the 23rd chromosome. Trapped beyond the point of return majority. And you have to understand how this affects everybody else. Because only those that think instinctive will tune out program. Only those with the sixth sense and restore their sixth sense and cross back over in their primordial state, in their celestial being, will control their business from the outside in and not the inside out. The rest are using artificial intelligence and selecting themselves, and that's what the problem is. Every human being on earth has free will, and every human being must be given free will. But now, they selected and made that free will. So they give consent. And everything they give consent to is what controls them, because they give them that control. So now, the world transformation movement that's happening with WF, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, body and mind, trust me, everybody's so shit scared of life after life and dying from stress and anxiety Have you heard Arnold Schwarzenegger? Have you heard the videos out there with people and the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger? Because they made big videos about people like this, famous people. And they're pissed off about dying and nothing after, because they don't have any faith in life after life and reincarnation and the reincarnation trap. They don't even understand it because they have no faith. That's why the whole world's trapped in reincarnation traps with amnesia and don't even realise that the truth is Christ learnt reincarnation and life after life, woke up from amnesia 24 and said, I'm son of David, son of Abraham. Nimrod resurrected in the old thing of Horus from Osiris. He was also Herod. And the Rockefellers. Bill Gates was a mastermind at 24 years old, couldn't read and write, no education, how to become a mastermind and how to become the richest man in the world by 24? Because he knows resurrection and he's not trapped in the reincarnation trap. So he's a mastermind when he come back. And he took possession as being the richest man in the world at 24 years old in 1980 because he's a mastermind of his own vessel and doesn't live in this mentality. And aren't you aware of that yet? No, you're not. You have amnesia. You think he's stupid? He's miles ahead of you guys. He runs the fucking world, for God's sake, these guys. Because they're masterminds of their vessels and don't live in mentality that they trapped everybody else into. That's why they're laughing and taking all the money and making you work like a wounded bull, like a slave. Because you're in a slave system, we can only 7% of your brain. And they use 100%. They know exactly what they're doing. They know how to trap you in amnesia and the reincarnation trap and get you to feed everything they give you. And that's the way they design you for a long, long time. And most people can't wake up to that fact because they consume every single thing they give them. With their Prama, with their lollies, with all the artificial foods and their food preservatives, snake poisons and everything, shellfish poisoning and absolutely everything. They take whatever they're given and just shove it down their throat because they can't think instinctively anymore. And that's what's happened to the whole human population. They consume all the garbage that they deserve because they make that selection. When artificial people makes a selection like this themselves and wants to blame everybody else, it's their fucking problem, right? They're a low-life reptilian because they only have abolished reliability anti-clockwise in their aura, so they're not fucking humans anyway. And you're told about that in the Bible and the book of, all the books by Plato. And you know, Jeremy Gibbs was the top scholar in the world, he's told you, you know, you got 24 distinct species here and they're not the fucking same. They don't want to cross over the 24th chromosome. But we all have that chromosome, but they don't want to. And they don't give a fuck about nothing but themselves, these species. And most people just act as on a social media platform. They only care about themselves and their own opinions. The same way that it's been declared all their books are written, and all their books smart education. Everything from mental disorders and defects is an opinion and wrong, declared worldwide. And you know, you've got 250,000 scientists out there, right, trying to make a name for themselves on a marketing strategy with body and mind, with their own opinions. It means they don't give a flying fuck. 250 million scientists and scholars out there are in the wrong mindset with the wrong teaching and don't care. They just want to make money for themselves and get into body and mind, the way that the whole thing's moving. And everybody's social media platform is pretty much the same way. All they care about is themselves, their own opinions, and making some kind of marketing strategy, or making friends, fake friends and fake tools, because they haven't got any in real life. They've got no genuine codependent relationships and no soulmates at all. And that's the time you're in. You're looking at actors all over the world on screens that want to make a name for themselves with their own opinions, and that's the only thing people care about themselves, because they're trapped so deep into themselves now that they're only artificial human beings in a personality with mentality, but they have no instinctive behaviour. No mental telepathy, no ESP, no remote viewing, no telekinesis, no levitation, no spin bending, no clock winding. They haven't got days to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. So they cannot think clockwise, they can only think anti-clockwise. They cannot think forwards, only backwards. That's why they're backwards. And when they're backwards, they're backwards. And every decision they make keeps them in that mind trap because of their own selections and what they hang on to around the world and what they believe in with their own perceived effect. So the fact is, you've got to get away from the decisions and all these things and get into natural selection and isolate yourself. That's why I put your 40-day test with When I Breathe In program, The Holy Breath of Life, and the book Freedom by Jeremy Gibbs, Freedom, The Holy Grail of Life, held by 16,000 top scholars. And it's the only way out of here, guys. Crossing over, going through the rebirth. And I know it's uncomfortable, but it is how it is. Most people's not going to make it because they hang on to all that unnatural selection that controls their stress and fear and their own perceived effect without even realising it. And it's always the little things that build big mountains you're not even aware of. To go back to natural selection is a massive process. It's not what people think. The crossover is massive. But it's also freedom and liberation. And it's also a lot easier than you think. But the mind makes it massive. The mind's so complicated with what's going on in your mind, it makes it so intolerable and nearly impossible to cross over because your mind's so powerful and it controls you that much. But once you release your mind, it all comes automatically out of the blue. Like the light bulb video, the picture that tells you that was going to lie to you. And you've got to let go of everything and just use the quantum mechanic of a relationship. Loyalty, honor, respect, moral remorse, inspiration and encouragement. Trust me when I'm telling you this. You must live in the quantum mechanics of the EMP pulse of the relationship. They're the only things that are positive. Okay? Everything else going in your mind and everything else in the world is all BS. And that's the best way to say it. Win says it too. Everything else is just a conversation and opinions and judgmental and competitive behavior. And it's really just BS. They're things that don't matter. If you're not in balance with the right frequencies in your own EMP pulse, with a relationship, with a codependent power, it's a universal conjointly power. It's an integrated relationship. It's a power of free light and energy that you're attached to in your body cells where you receive information and you receive a power that's so powerful, they call it the love pouring all over you. Most high. You're high as a kite, higher than you ever been before on any drug or any feeling you've ever had in your life. It's so high that the mind finds it hard to balance and people actually reject this without even realizing because they can't tolerate it. The mind goes into panic and stress and anxiety, and that's why a lot of people are actually rejecting this because they can't cope. The mind controls them too much. You must let go of the mind and every single thing that's got you by the balls. Let go of every single thing and fall into this. You need to let go and fall straight into it because believe me, it works.